Hey, first of all, I'm going to provide a link in the video description to a Diablo fans page where I built this build and kind of wrote everything down that you would need to know while building it and playing it. So if you want a page to look at with everything right in front of you, I will have that down in the video description. But in this video, I'm going to kind of walk you through my thoughts on speed greater rifting with Demon Hunter and kind of go over the build really quickly. I've done hundreds of speed GRs on Demon Hunter because I multi-box. So like I did a video on multi-boxing on my channel, but basically I'll have 4 accounts open and then I'll play my main Demon Hunter and then bring all the other characters, down to the Rift Guardian after I kill the Rift Guardian. So Demon Hunter is what I use to clear those GRs because I think it's kind of the fastest and easiest to play for me, most consistent. So I've done hundreds and hundreds of speed GRs, and I'm always kind of tweaking things and changing things around, trying to find that balance of what's going to make my average clear time just like 3 or 4 seconds faster. And this build's kind of what I've come up with. I can do speed GR 60 to 65 in under a minute and a half. Like if I'm doing GR 60s, it'll be an average of like 120 to 125. And if I'm doing GR 65s, it'll be like 130 to 140 average clear time. So extremely fast build that doesn't require a ton of Paragon. And it's not really that hard to gear to get to a point where you can be rocking and rolling. So I'm just going to go over the build itself really quickly. I like to hide preparation, invigoration on my left click because it's something I'm not going to use very often. So basically only for when you get below like 65, 70 discipline. If you're on like a bad rift level or something where you're having to vault a lot or use your movement speed abilities a lot, you're going to need to pop that. And then vault tumble on right click. If you're using Cinder Coat or something, you can change this to Trail of Cinders so that you are using that fire to get the proc from Cinder Coat. Shadow Glide on Shadow Power is a movement speed ability. You can also use Smokescreen Displacement. Smokescreen Displacement is going to be a little bit better for burst movement. Like when you go to a new GR level, you can burst into it. And Shadow Power, Shadow Glide is going to be better for like more consistent movement speed. So it depends on what you want. If you want burst or just consistent gliding. I kind of go with the gliding. But another thing you can do is actually use both. You can use displacement instead of companion. I really like the smoothness of the damage buff. So I haven't gone that route because I also don't want to burn through my discipline super fast. But it's something you can play around with and try. I recommend going with Shadow Glide and companion. So from what I've tried, that was the best for me. But you can play around with things as you so prefer. Vengeance Seath is obviously mandatory. This is something that is a staple of the build, and it kind of revolves around this being up permanently. Multi-shot Arsenal. Arsenal works really well with ballistics, so the fire build is going to really want to use the multi-shot Arsenal. It's also one of the staples of the build. Now we get into the passives. Blood Vengeance is an amazing quality of life passive. It's going to help you keep your discipline and hatred up so that you don't need to run like Cinder Coat or Pride's Fall or anything. And it's just going to help you. After an elite pack, you're going to see a burst of health globes. You scoop them up and it recharges everything. Go to the next elite pack, kill it, and then the Blood Vengeance recharges everything. So it just helps you stay topped off on all your resources. And then I like to use the 2 movement speed passives, Hot Pursuit and Tactical Advantage, because it's just going to help me blaze through that rift as fast as possible. If you're lacking on damage, you can try only using 1 movement speed passive and swapping that out for like Ambush or Steady Aim or something like that, but I really like having the 2 movement speed abilities. And then I play hardcore, so I have to use awareness because, once every 50 rifts or so, you're just going to have that unlucky molten explosion that barely clips you and it procs you. So I have to have awareness on hardcore, but I also have a Hellfire Amulet that gives me ballistics. Ballistics is going to be really important for this build, so you want to make sure you have that. So if you don't have a Hellfire Amulet and you're playing softcore, you're probably going to want Blood Vengeance, ballistics, and then the 2 movement speed abilities. If you're playing on hardcore and you don't have a Hellfire Amulet, you're going to want Blood Vengeance, Ballistics, Awareness, and Tactical Advantage. So that's kind of the build and the passives. Now, really quickly, I'll go over the cube. In the weapon slot, we're obviously going to need Dawn so we can keep our Vengeance up 100% of the time. We're going to want a Visage of Goons, because it's going to give us a lot more toughness. If you find that you're not struggling with toughness, or if you have a helm of Goons that you can wear instead of your UE helm, then there's kind of a lot of moving parts to this, but this is my version of it, and I put the Goons in here because it's just going to give me so much more toughness. I'm going to proc less. I can tank fatty explosions and stuff like that. For the ring, we're going to want to put the Convention of Elements here because it's a huge damage increase over the course of a whole rift. And when you cube it, you're guaranteed to get that 200% perfect roll on the damage buff. Now, as far as the gear itself, I'll just start with gloves here. You're going to really want cooldown, crit chance, and crit damage. And I guess first I should go over, you're going to want to aim for 38% cooldown. That's going to give you that 100% permanent Vengeance Seath. Now, you're going to have 1 second of cooldown if you have like 34%. So I would recommend trying to get to at least 34% because you do want to keep that up as permanently as you can. But yeah, 38% is going to make it absolutely 0 downtime for you. So that's what I aimed for. And to get that, we're going to want Paragon maxed out to cooldown because that's going to give us, where are we at here? That's going to give us the 10%. So with that, plus a max diamond in our helm, plus 3 pieces of gear that have cooldown, you will hit that threshold. So if you get 8% roll on 3 pieces of gear, plus max level diamond and helm, plus your Paragon cooldown maxed out, you will get to that 38%. The 3 pieces of gear that I put cooldown on are gloves, shoulders, and quiver. Now, I would say on shoulders, it's a must. You have to have cooldown on your shoulders. That's the only piece that I would say it's required. Gloves are pretty close. Like, you're gonna want cooldown on your gloves and your shoulders, and then like one other spot. If it's on your weapon, great. Now you don't have to worry about it. You have your 10%, you're good to go. You can get it on a ring as a very common spot to put cooldown on. So I would recommend gloves and shoulders, then one more spot. And that'll get you to that 38% threshold. Now, the build really revolves around Rochelle's Ring of Larceny. And I really love this item. It's gonna give you that big burst of movement speed when you fear an enemy, and the ring automatically provides fear. I was lucky and pretty early in the season I found this primal one, so I've been wearing this, and it's got the max 5.1% chance to fear. You're gonna want one with at least 3.5 to 4, I would say, and then this synergizes with the helm spot. The helm spot is also going to have a chance to roll fear as a secondary, and you want those two to synergize. You want the ring and the helm to both have chance to fear. And between the two of them, I would recommend trying to get to 7 or 8%. I, was lucky and got a couple good pieces here, so I'm at 10%, which makes the build perform really well. You're constantly fearing things because you have multi-shot going all over the screen, and 10%, 1 out of every 10 enemies you hit is gonna, proc that effect for 4 seconds, so it's basically permanent. But if you get those two to add up to 7 or 8%, it's definitely gonna be okay for you. So our other ring, I go with the Stone of Jordan. I also found a primal one of these. You want one that is gonna roll good discipline and a good increased damage to elites. So the reason this is great is because it gives you discipline, which obviously increases the effectiveness of our unhallowed set because it gives us damage for each point of discipline. And the only thing that's going to survive in the rift is elites. So Stone of Jordan kind of covers both bases. It gives us discipline, and it's going to help us out against those elites. Now, a lot of people love to run focus and restraint, and you absolutely can. But the reason I don't like running focus and restraint is because I don't want to have to stop to left click to proc my generator to help my damage out. And you can just not left click and not even run a generator, and then just take the damage buff from the restraint part of the focus and restraint, and that is viable. But I think Stone of Jordan and Rochelle's and Convention and all that add up to better than being just a right click of focus and restraint. So it's a little bit convoluted and stuff like that. But basically, this is what I like to run because it's lazier and easier to play, and it frees me up a slot. I don't need a generator. So this is what I found was best for doing hundreds of GRs, what would work for me. So try out both of them and let me know what you think, or, do whichever you prefer. I will say for low Paragon and for undergeared characters, you are probably going to want to run a focus and restraint. This build that I'm running is more something to build towards, to just really min-max. But for low Paragon and undergear, you will want to run focus and restraint probably. Now, the belt slot is another interesting one. I like the Krelm's belt because it gives me 25% run speed, and it's not quite permanent, but it's up a fair amount of the time, especially like on those long walkways and in between GR levels and stuff like that. So you can run a Witching Hour here, which will give you a lot more damage. So kind of Krelm's belt and Witching Hour are the two I would recommend to have in the belt slot. Cage of the Hellborn chest is going to be basically mandatory because we have to use a cloak because it's going to roll discipline on the secondary. So unfortunately, we can't wear like a cinder coat here because it won't roll discipline on the secondary. So you're going to want to have the Cage of the Hellborn in the chest spot. The bracers are a spot where you can put Nemesis bracers or Reaper's wraps. And again, you can use the cube to kind of mix and match and get this build kind of customized how you want it. I would say Nemesis bracers are basically mandatory because it's really going to drop your average clear time about 10 to 20 seconds because you're going to be able to get those elite packs and get those extra progression globes on every shrine. So you're going to save about 10 to 20 seconds per GR by having Nemesis bracers on. Our quiver is obviously going to be Dead Man Legacy because it's obviously great with multi-shot. So you want one that's going to roll a high multi-shot percentage and discipline as a secondary. And then you're going to want cooldown, multi-shot damage, and crit chance besides that. Now, boots, going to be Hellwalkers, basically required. You're going to want pickup radius, multi-shot damage, and, dex, vitality, stuff like that. Yang's recurve is obviously, required for this build and synergizes really well because it's going to let us really spam those multi-shots. And you want one that rolls a high multi-shot percentage on the secondary plus discipline, kind of the same as the quiver. And then you want percent damage, cooldown, attack speed, can both be handy, dex, vite, stuff like that. So you want to try to get one that has 3,000 damage. Mine's really good. It has 3,333. I would say the build will perform really well with anything over 3,000, and you can do that with, most ancient Yang's recurves can get to 3,000. I think that was all the gear slots I went over, but yeah, there are some moving parts on this build. Just as a final note, you can, swap out the Convention for a Ring of Royal Grandeur, and then wear Stone of Jordan and Convention, and then if you don't have like the percent fear helm, so you can swap out the goons for a cinder coat. You can do all sorts of different stuff. And if you don't have a Hellfire amulet, I went over that, but I would recommend trying to get a Hellfire amulet. It doesn't take that long to get one. You can farm, I would say you could farm a good Hellfire amulet in less than 2 hours. Like, you get some Uber keys, clear some Ubers. And since Hellfire Amulet now is guaranteed to roll a socket, it didn't used to be, so Hellfire Amulets were ridiculously hard to roll. Now they're guaranteed to roll a socket, so to get a usable one should take you less than 2 hours. And yeah, I haven't spent more than 2 or 3 hours on Ubers this entire season. I would say that's like max. It's probably less than 2. And I got like 2 or 3 really good Hellfire Amulets to use, so I would recommend doing that with this build. And just general gameplay tips, I wouldn't worry about like saving your Wolf Companion for elite packs of the RG. Just spam that thing and try to keep it up as often as you can, because the longer that you have that, or I should say the more often you have that percent damage increase throughout the rift, is going to increase your clear times. And your most dangerous points of the rift are going to be molten explosions, fatty explosions, and rift guardians with burst damage. So just try to avoid those moltens and those fatty explosions. And when you fight a rift guardian, try to avoid their burst damage. Keep your distance. Multi-shot has pretty good range, so fight below them so you have a good perspective because of the camera tilt. If they're above you, you can see more of that. You can stand farther away and get a better perspective, and just avoid their burst damage. But yeah, I would say as far as gear goals, 100 million toughness is really good because you're never going to proc, but you can always just go lower in the GR levels if you can't get that 100 million toughness. So you can do like speed 40s, speed 50s, and then you won't need near as much toughness. I do like GR 60 to 65. You don't really want to go too high with this build. The way I have this set up is to be blazingly fast. And the really common question I get is, hey, Chosen, how do I know which GR level I should be at? And the answer to that, in my opinion, is when you engage an elite pack, it should take less than 1 second to kill it. So like you engage an elite pack, say to yourself, 1,000, dead. If that elite pack isn't dead, when you say 1,000 dead, then I would go down a couple GR levels. Like, this build isn't designed to stand there and hack away at elite packs for 3 to 5 seconds. Like, you need to be killing and going, killing and going, killing and going, and constantly, blazing moving speed throughout the whole rift. So, if you're trying to do high GRs or something, like, there's different builds for that. This is a speedy GR build. So, yeah, that covers... legendary gems I didn't cover. Really quickly, you want to use Zay's. Obviously, it synergizes amazingly with multi-shot. Bane of the Powerful is just really good, consistent toughness and damage, so a really good gem to use for this. The third gem has a lot of leeway. I like Esoteric because I can kind of play lazy and not worry about, I play hardcore, so I don't have to worry about proccing my cheat death as often. I can just kind of play lazier. But there are some other good options. If you're not struggling with dying at all and you don't need the Esoteric, you can go with what's more damage? Trapped doesn't really work with this. If you're low Paragon or something and you really do want to use Bane of the Trapped, what you can do is swap out a passive for Thrill of the Hunt. Where is Thrill of the Hunt? Right here, this one. So that's going to slow enemies when you hit them with multi-shot, and then that'll proc your Bane of the Trapped. So if you really want to use Bane of the Trapped to get more damage, swap out a passive for Thrill of the Hunt. But otherwise, with this build as I have it here, you could go with the Wreath of Lightning. It's going to give you a little bit more movement speed, but I find it doesn't really proc that often. I don't really feel the impact of it, so I don't really bother using it, but you can get a little bit more movement speed by using that. You can use Gem of Toxin. It's going to give you a little bit more damage and a little bit more toughness, but it's pretty negligible. I've tried it and I haven't really found that it works that well. Stricken, when we're doing speed GRs, we're not really going to get any benefit out of this. Pain Enhancer is okay, but we're not really standing in one spot, attacking a ton to get that attack speed benefit, and then the impact seems to be pretty minimal. So yeah, I've found, I just go with Esoteric, so I can be lazy and take damage and not really worry about it. But yeah, I hope I covered everything enough to help you play this build, and if you have any questions, drop it down in the comments, and I will do my best to respond and help you out. So, as always, thanks for watching. Have a good rest of your day. Peace.